Hello, and welcome to 3 Points in a Poem. I'm your host, Mary-Laurence Bevington. So today's video has a trigger warning on it. Some of the content may be uncomfortable because I'm going to talk about war and death. And on that note, please give yourself a breath, and I will do the same. So the poem today is Food for Powder, Food for Powder, Tut Tut, Food for Powder. These are lines from one of Shakespeare's plays, Henry IV, Part 1. They're said by the character Falstaff in the fourth act, second scene, primarily. And Falstaff is an interesting cat. He's friends with Hal, the prince in Henry IV, the Henry of Henry IV, who goes by Hal. And Falstaff is referring to military recruits that he has that he deems not well trained, not fit for the battlefield, and therefore they are food for powder. In the context, powder is gunpowder, and the food is the people. They are basically people that will likely not survive the battle because they're not fit for battle. And it's a sobering reminder, especially if you're a high school student reading the play, which I was. And I also come from Generation X, which was a generation that was in many ways born out of the Vietnam War. Whether you were born while the war was still going or a little bit after, that was a vibe, a wave that affected Generation X, other generations too, clearly. But part of the reason we are somewhat of the whatever generation, I think, is because the war in Vietnam was such a debacle and it caused so much generational harm. But it was also going on concurrently with these other huge movements that were world changing. So I picked this poem for today, moving into the second point today, because while we are in a much different time, I mean, we're 50 plus years from when Vietnam was still happening, we are at a similar time in myriad ways. And we are seeing some of these cataclysmic shifting monumental changes. A lot of us woke up this morning feeling heavy because of the death of Renee Good in Minneapolis, Minnesota, because we saw someone who looked like us, someone who looked like somebody in our neighborhood, a friend, maybe somebody that is related to us, get unlawfully killed by an ICE agent. And then today, this day after, we have also seen all of these giant shifts. So, Spotify, for example, has said we're not going to do any ICE advertising anymore after being boycotted substantially, as well as an extension being signed by Congress for healthcare subsidies. And also some Republicans in government right now, particularly in Congress, who seem to be swaying away from the fascistic executive branch. And I don't use the adjective fascistic lightly. They have completely come to the point where we cannot deny that they are essentially seizing control for their own gain and other traits that we would see in a fascist regime. So we are at a point where we could make our own personal choices. We can always do this before, now, and in the future. And it's crystal clear right now. So you'll hear a lot out there. You'll hear a lot of the negative. You'll hear a lot of the falsehoods, even when you're seeing something right in front of you that is crystal clear. You might hear someone say, nope, nope, you're not seeing that. You are not seeing those gas lights flicker. no, there couldn't be anybody on that third floor. Those glass lights are not flickering. Don't believe your lying eyes. It's a little bit like that. And we are at a point where we also are hearing this enlightened side. And I think, physical representation of that right now is the monks walking. And I know I've talked about them a lot lately. They are continuously walking. They will likely or aim to arrive in Washington, D.C. the 12th of February. So just about 5, 6 days before the Tibetan Losar, the Chinese New Year occurs, which is also the beginning of the lunar year. And they're moving mountains. They're tying the commitment style bracelets are typically made of yarn, but they're blessed, and the monks will chant. I watched a video. I do this sort of as my therapy. I watched a video today of a monk tying a yarn bracelet on a blind man and then chanting to him. And the man was reaching in his pocket to give the monk 70 cents that he happened to have in his pocket. And the monk was just continuously chanting, and it was so moving. And of course, they have their dog, Aloka, there too. And there's a video that's like, Aloka, the most famous dog in the world. So I want to wrap this up with two things. One is to say that, as many of you know, I use the tool of astrology as well as numerology. I'm also trained clairvoyant. So I bring all of this in, as well as coaching, into my work here and my videos. I don't necessarily say this is what's happening sometimes, but I look at that stuff to inform what I share with you. And I've looked at the astrology for the end of this week into the weekend. So this is January 9th, January 10th, moving towards the 11th of January. There's a lot of intensity to it. So without going deep into the actuals, which I likely will do in another video, I will just say there's the energy of war. There's the energy of the self. There's the energy of emotion. There's a high concentration of energy in the sea goat cardinal earth sign of Capricorn. And I'm really recommending finding what the monks keep asking us to do, your peace. So their mantra is, today is going to be my peaceful day. And if we can find that place in us, it will make a world of difference. And the call to action today is to experiment a little bit with a style of meditation. I went to a university that was influenced by Tibetan Shambhala system as well as Tibetan Buddhism, because it was started by a Buddhist monk. And one of the meditation forms that we practiced, especially when disasters happen, was called Tonglen. And in Tonglen, the basic form of it is you breathe in the suffering of the world. You like Rumi, you go through that pain. You actually accept that there's suffering in the world. It's very much like a bodhisattva act. You take in that suffering. And as you breathe out, you move out loving kindness. So in a sense, in the cycle of one single breath, a transmutation has happened. An energy that was once one form has become a new form. And Tonglen is a remarkable style of meditation. When I do it, I tend to have a micro spiritual experience, if you will. So my call to action to you today is, and you're welcome to share in the comments. This is perhaps a little bit more of a personal thing, though it's always nice to meditate with friends if you've got a scene like that. But experiment a little bit with Tonglen, so that you bring in that suffering on the inhale and then you release out loving kindness on the exhale. And you may find, as I have found, that it expands the heart of compassion, the capacity for compassion. And with that, I bid you adieu and yours in carrying the light.